everybody, welcome back. We're going to go through the updated Marvel Snap meta tier list per Marvel Snap Zone. This is the week of April 25th. So what they do here is they rank a bunch of the different decks in games in different tiers, and then through here they have the explanation of these decks a little bit. So we're going to do a brief look at these. Let me know what your thoughts are. Do you agree with their tier list? For any of the newer players, when we look at the full deck here below, I would definitely look at those, see if you've got those cards and test them out. One of the things that I've learned from this game is don't stress about having all the cards. Play as many decks as you can to get a feel for them, because then when you play your opponents, you will recognize what they might be playing and the right way to play it. And there are a ton of decks out there, so I would highly recommend doing that. The tier 1 decks they have here, it looks like Dino Darkhawk. We talked about Dino Destroy last week. They've got Electro Ramp. I'm not surprised by that. They have Sarah Surfer and Sarah Control. Sarah has been sort of at the top notch of everything. Patriot Ultron, especially with that hot location, Sandbar, wah, wah, wah to that location. That's going to be doing really well this week. Then we've got Doom Wave, which will also do pretty well. Death Wave. I'm seeing a lot of waves all over the place. We had the OTA video the other day where we wanted to see some adjustments to Wave. I'm very interested to see if they do anything there. Thanos Ongoing. This Lockjaw being in tier 2, sort of surprised by that. I think Lockjaw took a pretty big hit. I personally think in the weeks to come, I wouldn't be surprised if they lower the cost of him. You're not seeing him at all. I'm sort of surprised this is tier 2. I would think that'd be tier 3. Galactus is down at tier 2. I know a lot of people hate Galactus. I don't necessarily really have a hatred at Galactus. I think it's an interesting, very powerful card. Generally, it's pretty easy to see. You can really manipulate what those players do. And I don't have Galactus, but my understanding of trying to climb with Galactus, it's very, very grindy. I'm a bit surprised that's a tier 2, but given he's a big bad, you kind of want him there. Beginning of tier 3's Discard Dracula. I'm actually seeing a ton of discard right now. There was a tournament recently that had some discard in it, and I think this is probably going to be more popular right now. Discard sort of goes away with Leech a little bit because all of the cards sort of just get nuked, but I think it's a good deck to play, especially with Dracula. You can do some things. Shuri Zero is all the way down to tier 3 now, so that took a huge hit. Bounce Monkey all the way down to tier 3. That's a little surprising too. I think that's a lot of a fun deck and can be really good. But with Sandman, I could see how something like that could get demoted to a lower tier. And then their budget, they've got Hand Size Destroy, Ongoing, Sandman, Kazoo, and Control. So really the Electro Ramp for the Sandman stuff's up here. So let's look at each individual deck. This is the Dino Darkhawk deck. It's your typical throw rocks at your opponent, have your Darkhawk in there, have your Devil Dinosaur with cards that give you cards with your Agent Coulson, White Queen. You got a Shang for some control on your opponent's side. Everything here is pretty good. Your Zabu helps you get that Darkhawk, Shang-Chi, Rock Slide, White Queen, all cheaper. And then you've got a Doom to throw out and hit some hard spots towards the end of the match. Mystique to copy potential Darkhawk or Devil Dinosaur. This is a pretty good deck. I don't know if I think it's definitely tier 1 right now, but you're seeing a lot of it for sure. Dino Control, which is very similar. You throw in the Daredevil, the Spider-Man, and the Professor X on this. That way you can potentially lock in some locations. You get the Daredevil, who I absolutely love that card. Iceman to help make things a little bit harder for them. Obviously Shang-Chi, Moon Girl to double up, and they've got Quinjet to reduce the cost of cards from Moon Girl, White Queen, and even Sentinel. America Chavez to thin it out. I'm a little surprised this is that high, but with the Spider-Man and Professor X and Daredevil, I can see decks with those 3 cards really being top tier regardless of what you're playing against. The Electro Ramp. You've got your Electro, your Sandman, your Ebony Maw, your Wave. This is pretty typical. And then you've got your Zola, your Doom, your Odin to potentially reproc your Doom, your Chavez to thin out the deck. The Devil Dinosaur on this, I'm a little surprised by. You've got no cards that necessarily bring more cards to your deck. I might look at something to replace that a little bit. I don't dislike the Magneto, but I question that a little bit. Leader right now, again, he's a pretty strong card to double up whatever you're doing. Anytime you're doing Electro Ramp and you've got a leader situation, you can bring something back from the other side. The nice thing about this is it's all about getting some early cards, and then you've got this plethora of high cost cards, which they all do pretty well for you regardless of what you're doing. If you're making yourself and your opponent only play 1 card, you really want to make sure to get that Wave in with your Sandman. And if your Sandman's not there, you wave into maybe your Dr. Doom, something like that, and then you can Odin the Doom later to get additional points, or even your leader. Sarah controls Surfer. So I've got a video coming out this week where we're going to talk about the free Series 3 cards, also the ones for coming up in May. Surfer was a card that we were discussing on the Discord, link in the description below, about where to put that card and if it is up or down. I think it's going to end up being a little bit higher up. I think that right now it's a decent thing to play when you're getting a lot of these one card plays. So you can get a lot of cards out early, maybe before a Sandman gets hit, and then maybe drop the Surfer late as a one card. I mean, especially with Brood, all pretty good stuff here. I very much like the Sarah decks, but again, they're easily countered with Sandman if you don't play a lot of cards early. Love Goose in here. You're seeing a lot more Goose lately as well. Sarah control, just a little bit different. You throw in the hood, some Destroy in this, Scarlet Witch, change some locations. Love the Bishop. Typically with Bishop, I do like to try to find a Mysterio so I can get a little bit more points on that Bishop. Sarah obviously is all about that late play here. You know, you Carnage with that hood and the Nova being in the same spot. It works out pretty nice. Enchantress to mess with your opponent a little bit. Patriot Ultron. So right now, like I mentioned, Sandbar is the hot location. I despise that location because I don't have many decks that actually have no abilities in them, and I don't have Patriot yet. So it makes things pretty tough. But this is a fantastic deck. You're seeing a ton of Super Scroll right now. He's so hot right now. Ultron, Doom, Blue Marvel, all this typical stuff you see with Patriot, and of course Mystique to copy whatever ongoings you are able to play. This deck tends to be pretty good against your Sandmans as well. You got to pick up when they're playing that Sandman, which means you need to get that Patriot out pretty early because you're only gonna be able to play one card. But when it's out and you get that Blue Marvel or that Doom late, or even the Ultron, you're gonna be sitting pretty. This is just a pretty good solid deck right now. All right, here's start of tier 2, Doom Wave. We talked about Wave a little bit earlier. You've got your Doom, you pull it out. Darkhawks, Rock Slides, Korgs, all that sort of thing. Goose to limit the locations where they can play big cards. Your Mr. Fantastic to throw mid to get some points out on the edges. Zabu to give you some cheaper costs with Darkhawk, Shang-Chi, and Rock Slide. She-Hulk to potentially play early with something. If you're waving into Doom on turn 6, you throw down Doom and She-Hulk. It's a good combination. Or if you don't get the Doom, you can do the She-Hulk and the Chavez, but it's getting that She-Hulk in there it's great when you pull wave on turn 5. I'd call this more of a Doom wave for the rich and famous. Anybody who can get Jeff. Very similar, just a couple changes. I'm not going to go through this one again. Death Wave is very similar concept on this with your Killmonger. You've got ones that you're throwing out there. Deathlock to take some things out. Shang-Chi and Arrow for some manipulation. Wave to get either your Doom, She-Hulk, Death. All of those sort of things really good and late, and you're talking about a lot of good cards. Waving on turn 5, you're talking about dropping 3 good cards here, which can be fantastic. Again, you've got Arrow in case something goes wrong and you need to move a card around, but I like this deck a lot. Arrow might be able to be replaced on this, but this is a great deck. Thanos ongoing, I don't have Thanos, so I haven't played this a lot, but a lot of your ongoing cards, you can copy them. Thanos gives you the stones. Again, notice no lockjaw on this. With the stones, you bring more of the stones into your hand. You've got Devil Dinosaur, you've got Mystique that can be copying the Devil Dinosaur or the Khazar, the Blue Marvel. If you got stones in there's a lot of good things here that give you a lot of different options to play. This is a good deck. I think this is what you're going to see Thanos being playing the most. I won't be surprised if we get an adjustment to Spectrum sometime in the near future. Not sure exactly what they do, but a slight tweak to her could be justified. Thanos Lockjaw, I mentioned earlier, I'm sort of surprised this is on here. A lot of ongoing Thanos with Lockjaw in it. I don't know. I don't know if I love Lockjaw really at all anymore. I suppose you could throw them out there and just hope turn 4 and 5 you get something decent out of it. But counting on a turn 6 with a stone, I mean, maybe it's good because you can play a stone and Iron Man or a stone and Blue Marvel or Devil Dinosaur Claw. There's a lot of options there. Then they have the regular Lockjaw deck with some smaller cards and then some bigger cards with your Dracula discard late. I do like the Dracula discard when you've got a lot of high power cards in your hand. With Thor, you've got Jane Foster to bring any zeros into your hand. If you do summon something like Vision, it's nice to be able to move it around. So this is a solid deck, but again, you're not seeing a ton of Lockjaws right now. Thanos Death deck, where we've got Killmonger to take out the stones, get Death a little bit cheaper, Shang-Chi. There's a wave to get something earlier. You can see you've got a whole bunch of high cards there. Odin to potentially reproc your Doom. Or if you really want to mess with your opponent, you can wave and then Odin your wave. So you get 2 turns in a row where you get that manipulation. I do like doing that sometimes. It's kind of fun. Key part here is getting some stones out though and getting Killmonger to get that death down. Galactus, we talked about it earlier. This is a card that's not liked by very many people in the game, but it's very powerful. Also can be be very easy to know what is coming. I'm a bit surprised by Taskmaster here. Doc Ock's normal, null, standard. Your Destroyer to clear things out if you're doing anything with wave or playing early. Death is just an obvious late play, potentially with null, depending when you can get your Galactus out. Just a generally decent Galactus deck. They've got another version of Galactus here where you've also got a Spider-Man you can throw down with Galactus, which I do hate when you get Galactus then Spider-Man and you can't go. Ugh, that is so frustrating. Then they've got their tier 3. I'm not going to go through every one of these, but the one I do want to mention is the Discard Dracula. I think this deck right now is a very popular, fun deck to play. I've always really liked Discard. Swordmaster is the one that I don't necessarily love because he can just be so RNG, but then again, what else in this isn't RNG? There is no, everything else you know what you're getting out of it. Now the question is just what you get in your hands. Now, should you have RNG to it? I don't know. I think that Swordmaster generally can be a card that you could pull out of this. You could potentially put a higher card in here in case you get anything with your Dracula that's left in hand because you don't pull the MODOK. The key with this is do not leave a swarm in your hand for Dracula to discard. That's the biggest thing to remember. Wolverine's nice because when he gets discarded, he hops onto a location, sometimes to a hard to reach one. So that's the tier list. We didn't go over Shuri Zero, Bounce Monkey, or some of these budget ones, but I think if you really want to check those out, if you're a newer player, I'll put the link to this article in the description below. Go here, check it out. Marvel Snap Zone is a great resource for the game and seeing and learning, as is hopefully this YouTube channel. And if you found any of this helpful, or you just want to help push the channel to 1,000 subscribers, we're doing a blitz / sort of subathon. Consider hammering down that like button, share with your aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews. Maybe they'll sub, I don't know. And until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day.